Welcome to the Storyteller's Moon, a place where every tale carries you into a world of passion, mystery, and unforgettable emotion. This story will pull you in, so find a quiet corner, let your heart open, and step into the journey. Loving the Enemy. Part 1. The Rival's Son. Naomi Davis had been raised on blueprints and warnings. Her earliest memories were not of dolls or crayons, but of tracing paper unfurled across her father's drafting table, the smell of pencil shavings and lemon oil, and her mother's soft voice reading permit codes like bedtime psalms. And threaded through every lesson, every victory, every setback, there was always the same admonition, repeated with the weight of a family creed. Never trust a Hartwell. In their corner of the city, Davis and Company Architecture and Hartwell Development were two suns locked in a decades-long orbit, throwing flares at each other across city councils and union halls. The feud had outlived two mayors and a stadium. Naomi's father, Leonard Davis, wore it like a suit. His rival, Gideon Hartwell, wore it like a weapon. By the time Naomi could read a zoning map, she understood. The day she shook a Hartwell hand would be the day a knife slid between her ribs. Which is why, when the ballroom doors of the Marshall Hotel opened and Naomi stepped into a blaze of chandeliers and donors and champagne, and her gaze snagged on him, all height and shoulder, an impossible stillness across a sea of sequins, her blood instinctively went cold. Malik Hartwell. Even from across the room she could see the edges that made people talk. The strong line of his jaw softened by a beard he kept neat enough to pass any boardroom test. The fine scar near his right eyebrow from a bicycle crash he never told anyone was his older brother's fault. The watch that said old money, but the eyes that said old soul. He wore black the way others wore armor, and those eyes, dark, attentive, found hers unlocked, as if the past 6 years hadn't existed at all. Naomi's breath misstepped. Heat flashed up her throat so fast she nearly missed a step. "Girl, no," Kayla murmured, sliding into place at Naomi's side with a practiced smile, keeping her own eyes politely on the donors. Kayla's braids were swept into a low bun. She dressed Naomi in silver satin with an architectural neckline that made older men blink twice and women nod in approval. "Is that who I think it is?" Naomi didn't answer. Her spine lengthened. She adjusted the cuff of her dress at the wrist like it was lines on a plan. "He doesn't belong here." "He belongs wherever drama is," Kayla said, teeth not moving. "And he's walking this way." "He won't." But even as she said it, Malik started to move. Unhurried, direct, cutting through the gala's glitter, as if paths simply opened for him, which they often did. The Hartwell name had money, not just wealth, old money. The kind that arrived before explanations. 6 years ago, when she and Malik were interns, children wearing officers-like costumes, they'd spent an entire summer sparring over a Riverwalk proposal both firms wanted. He teased, needled, admired. She'd mocked, parried, burned. They'd nearly kissed in a hallway, smelling like fresh paint and bad decisions, before reality shoved its way in. Leonard's voice on the phone, Gideon's shadow down the stairs, duty like frost on a window. Naomi had pulled back so hard she could still feel the whiplash when she remembered. He stopped in front of her now, close enough that she could catch the clean spice of his cologne and the faintest hint of cedar. The band slowed into a sultry brass number. Conversation around them thinned into murmurs. "Naomi Davis," he said, voice low, textured, the kind that braided itself around your name and made it sound like fate. "The city keeps pretending it's big enough to keep us apart. I appreciate its effort." "I don't," Naomi said crisply, curving her mouth into the kind of smile that killed insects. "Go appreciate something else." A corner of his mouth lifted. "You look—" He paused, letting his eyes travel the line of her dress with a deliberateness that felt both audacious and reverential. Dangerous. She hated the thrill that unspooled in her stomach, hated how her heart leaned towards the flattery like a plant to a window. "Flattery is a cheap building material," she said. "It cracks under pressure." "Then I'll use steel," he murmured. "Naomi." Kayla's tone went warm for the benefit of a donor passing by, but her fingers pressed warning into Naomi's elbow. "Mrs. Ortega wants to introduce you to the Jensen Foundation." Naomi inhaled, professional, smile, movement. But Malik was still there, gravity masquerading as a man, and when she moved, he moved with her, not touching, not blocking, simply present, the way a storm front is present, even before the first raindrop. Mrs. Ortega, a philanthropist in a jade sheath, took both Naomi's hands with relief. "You're saving our after-school studio, dear. And I want you to meet—" "Oh!" Her gaze snagged on Malik, calculation brightening. "Mr. Hartwell, your timing is impeccable." "I've been practicing," Malik said smoothly. Mrs. Ortega glanced between them with the kind of glee only a woman who fundraised for a living could wring from tension. "Well then?" "Smile for the committee," she sang, and drifted away to orchestrate someone else's fate. Naomi kept her shoulders relaxed. Her father's training, hold the line, control the temperature, do not let your face confess what your mouth won't say, settled over her like a shawl. "What do you want, Malik?" she asked, pitched for his ears only. "For tonight?" He leaned in just enough to make her breath catch. "A dance." "I don't dance with Hartwells." "You did," he said softly. "Once." "We didn't dance?" she snapped. "We almost made a mistake." He studied her, amusement retreating under something truer. "Do you always call what you want most a mistake?" The band shifted. Crystal chimed. On the stage, the deputy mayor tapped the microphone. "If I could have your attention for a moment." Malik stepped back, gaze never leaving Naomi's face. "You'll want to hear this," he murmured. She almost told him she didn't want anything he named. Then the screen behind the stage flickered alive with renderings, sunlight skimming glass, sweeping curves embracing a river, a public promenade alive with families and food trucks and music. The title arced like a promise, The Sable River Renaissance. Naomi's spine chilled. She knew that curve. She knew that rhythm of arches. She'd watched her father sketch a version of that dream at their kitchen table for years, between bites of stew and critiques of mayors. After months of negotiation, the deputy mayor trilled, "We are thrilled to announce a collaborative design-build partnership between Davis and Company. Architecture and Hartwell development to remake our riverfront for all of us. It felt like the room inhaled. Naomi went hot, then cold. Her head snapped toward Malik. "No," she said. It wasn't a refusal. It was disbelief wearing a dress. He didn't look triumphant. He looked, God help her, relieved. "Yes." "We don't collaborate?" "We do now." He angled closer. "On paper." She thought of Leonard, of the way his jaw would set when the deputy mayor called him. She thought of Gideon, the Hartwell patriarch, smiling like a shark, and the deals he would have cut in golf carts and back rooms and charity boxes to make this merger stick. She thought of the dream she'd had since architecture school, to put something beautiful and useful back into the lungs of her city. And she thought of the one person who had ever managed to make her feel both seen and out of control in the same breath. "I'll fight it," she said, fingers tightening around her clutch. "Of course you will," he said, and there was admiration in it that anchored and unmoored her at once. "You're Naomi Davis." Kayla returned with champagne and a look like this is either a catastrophe or a miracle. Either way, I'm taking notes. "So, you two are about to build a river together?" "That's not metaphorical at all." Naomi downed the champagne in a burn. "I'm getting air." She didn't wait for permission. She slipped through the ballroom's French doors onto the balcony, the city laid out below, like a map she had once dreamed of drawing. Cool night breeze lifted stray curls at her temple. Traffic hummed, the kind of steady, anonymous sound that lets a body tell itself it's safe. She placed her palms on the stone rail and let her shoulders drop. The river glittered like a blade under the bridge lights. She tried to breathe around the knot in her sternum, the place where duty, desire, and rage had taken up residence like tenants who refused to pay rent. Footsteps behind her, careful on tile. She didn't turn. She knew. "Don't," she said. "I wasn't going to touch you," Malik replied, voice quieter now, the playfulness striped out of it. "Not unless you asked." "Bold to assume I'd ask." "Honest to admit, I'd hope." She hated the way hope sounded in his mouth, hated that it made her chest ache. "Why this project?" she asked the skyline. "Why us?" His exhale scraped, because the city needed it, because our fathers would rather win than fix what's broken, because I'm tired of building temples to money and calling it community, because... He stopped, swallowed. "Because I want to know what we make when we stop pretending we don't want to make something together." The words sank into her skin like heat. She turned then, finally, and faced him. Close. The balcony light drew gold across his cheekbones. Up close, his eyes weren't simply dark. There were lighter flecks near the pupil, a secret constellation. "This is business," she said, because she needed the excuse to stand on. "A contract. We set boundaries and follow them. We speak through our attorneys. We never meet alone." "Agreed," he said, instantly, too easily. She blinked, his mouth tilted. "You thought I'd argue." "I thought you'd be a Hartwell about it." "I can be a Hartwell later," he said. "Right now I'm a man who wants to build something worth our names. Silence stretched. The band inside slid into a slow song that made mistakes sound like destiny. Naomi realized her heart was beating too fast, that her body had already decided things her mind refused to sign off on. It felt unfair to be raised on rules, only to find her pulse didn't read them. "Dance with me," he said. Not a command, not quite a plea, a proposal, architect to architect. Just here. 30 seconds. I'll never get back if you say no. She should have. She should have said no so hard, the word left a dent. Instead, she lifted one hand, placed it in his. Heat arrowed up her arm. He stepped in, his other hand respectful at her waist. Warm through silk, steady, not possessive but sure. And swayed with her in the hush of the balcony, while the city held its breath. For a moment, everything went quiet, except the rhythm they made with the movement of their bodies, the collective hum of muscle and will. He smelled like cedar, and something darker that made her hungry for air. "Naomi," he murmured, like a vow and a question. She raised her chin. "Don't mistake physics for forgiveness." His breath caught on a laugh. "Never." The French doors swung open. "Naomi?" Leonard's voice, the father voice, the one that brooked no delay, knifed into the moment. He strode out, sweet immaculate, tie a shade of righteous. His gaze landed on Malik, narrowed, then flicked to his daughter's hand on a man she had been taught to despise. "Inside," Leonard said to Naomi. To Malik, "Enjoy your evening, son. It may be the last we spend pretending this is progress." Malik's fingers loosened. He stepped back first, smart, strategic, his expression smoothed into something that would not start a war on a balcony. "Mr. Davis," he said evenly. Naomi's hand felt cold without his. "Daddy," she began, and hated the childishness of the word, the way it betrayed a part of her she usually kept hidden behind competence. Leonard didn't look at her. "Now." She went. "Because even when you grow, you still go when the man who taught you blueprints calls your name like a summons." Behind her, Malik did not follow. He leaned on the balcony rail as if considering the water's edge. But when she glanced back through the glass, he was watching her with an expression that promised only one thing. This isn't over. Inside the ballroom, deals were already unspooling, lawyers blinking like owls from the edges, donors lining up to attach their names to whatever victory came next. Leonard lowered his voice as they moved through a corridor of flowers. "He will take anything you offer him," her father said tightly. "If you give an inch, Naomi, he'll call it a foundation." She wanted to say, "What if we build something on it?" But the sentence died on her tongue. "Boundaries?" Leonard continued. "Meetings public, notes shared. You don't get coffee with him. You don't get air with him. You don't give him a story he can use." Naomi nodded. "I know." "Do you?" He stopped, turned, searched her face with eyes that had taught her how to read a skyline. Something like worry softened the corners. "You're my daughter," he said. "I didn't raise you to be conquered." "I'm not a city," she said. "I don't fall to invaders." "Good," he said. Relief and steel in one syllable. "Because Hartwells don't invade. They seduce." That night, in her apartment, Naomi stood barefoot on her balcony, and watch the same river she'd stood above earlier, the wind lifting her curls, the city pulsing quieter now that money had gone to sleep. Her phone buzzed on the patio table, an unknown number lighting the screen. Against her own rules, she answered. 30 seconds, Malik's voice said, smoky with late hour. You owe me 30 seconds you stole back from the balcony. I don't owe you anything, she said, but she didn't hang up. Then consider this a courtesy. He exhaled slowly, and she could almost feel it across the space. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., City Hall, joint kickoff. Bring your fiercest suit. I always do. I know, he said, and she could hear the smile. And Naomi? What? I'll follow your rules. A beat. Until you ask me to break them. She ended the call, pulse shaking, anger and want dueling in her veins, like boxers who liked each other too much. The river moved on like water does, indifferent to where bridges go until they exist. In the dark glass of her sliding door, Naomi caught her reflection. Strong, composed, the woman she'd spent a decade building. Behind that, if she tilted her head, she could almost see another woman, one who swayed on balconies for 30 seconds with enemies, because 30 seconds could feel like sanctuary. She didn't sleep much. She ironed a charcoal suit that said architect and a silk blouse that said don't try me. And when dawn came and the city yawned itself open, she told herself a new vow, layered over the old. I will build the river. I will keep my heart. I will not be conquered. She believed it. She needed to. Tomorrow would be the test. Part 2. Sparks in the Fire. Naomi had spent years building walls out of glass and steel, but none of them felt strong enough the next morning when she walked into City Hall. She wore her fiercest charcoal grey suit, silk blouse tucked in sharp as a blade, heels that clicked like punctuation. Her curls framed her face like a crown, and her portfolio tucked under her arm was as much a shield as a weapon. She was here to represent Davis and Company, not to fall into anyone's orbit. Not even Malik's, especially not Malik's. Naomi Davis, someone called, and she turned to see Deputy Mayor Elaine Garner, smiling as if she'd been waiting for this photo opportunity her whole career. And Mr. Hartwell. Naomi stiffened. Malik was already there. Of course he was. Standing at the long mahogany table in a black suit that looked like it had been poured onto him. He was talking quietly with an aide, head slightly bowed. But when Naomi entered, his eyes lifted as if he had felt her arrive before he saw her. The room tilted. For a fraction of a second, it was just the two of them. Then she inhaled, moved forward, and didn't look again. The meeting started with renderings. Bright slides splashed across the wall, the new promenade, the amphitheater, the pedestrian bridges, the city's vision, half Davis, half Hartwell, all compromise. Naomi leaned in, pointing to the design lines. We need to reconsider the walkway curvature here. The current flow creates a bottleneck. If we shift the angle, we lose 6 meters of retail space. Malik interjected smoothly. That's revenues the city's banking on. She cut him a glare. If no one can walk comfortably, there won't be revenue. Unless discomfort makes them linger longer, he countered, lips twitching. Deputy Mayor Garner clapped her hands. This is exactly why we need you two working together. Balance of vision and practicality. Passion but progress. Naomi sat back, jaw tight. Malik gave her the briefest look, one brow raised. He enjoyed this. He enjoyed watching her bristle, enjoyed sparring like this was foreplay. She hated how her pulse agreed. At lunch break, she escaped to the balcony overlooking the plaza. The spring air smelled of roasted peanuts from a street cart below. She was sipping water when she heard his voice. You really don't like being disagreed with, do you? She turned. Malik leaned against the stone column, tie loosened, like he had all the time in the world. I don't mind disagreement, she said coolly. I mind arrogance disguised as expertise. He chuckled. And you're the only one with expertise here? I've worked for this city my entire adult life. So have I, he said, surprising her with the edge in his tone. You think Hartwells don't care about this city? My father? Maybe. But me? I live here. I run these streets. I know what corners flood when it rains, and which parks parents avoid after dark. You think I don't care about the people who'll walk this promenade? Naomi froze. His voice wasn't playful anymore. It was raw, earnest, and that was somehow more dangerous than his smirk. You don't show it, she said softly. Neither do you, he shot back, then smiled faintly, tension easing. We hide behind the same armor, Naomi. We just painted different colors. Her chest ached. She turned away, gripping the rail. This doesn't change anything. You're still a Hartwell. And you're still a Davis. He moved closer, his voice lower now, intimate. But last night, on that balcony, you didn't feel like a Davis. You just felt like you. Her heart stuttered. She opened her mouth, but his phone buzzed. He glanced, jaw tightening. Duty calls. Don't go soft on me, Naomi. He left, and she hated the emptiness he left behind. That evening, Naomi returned to the office, dropping into the leather chair in her father's corner suite. Leonard was hunched over papers, tie loosened. He looked up. Well? They want us to compromise. Hartwell pushed revenue. I pushed community. The mayor loved the fight. Leonard grunted. Hartwells only care about the bottom line. You did right to stand your ground. Naomi hesitated. Malik's voice whispered in her head. We hide behind the same armor. Dad, she began, what if? No what ifs, Leonard cut in. You give them nothing. Hartwells take inches and turn them into miles. We play defense. Naomi pressed her lips together. Defense. Always defense. She wondered, for the first time, if that was why she always felt tired. 2 weeks later, Naomi and Malik stood shoulder to shoulder on the riverfront, boots sinking into wet soil. The city had sent them for a sight walkthrough. The sun was setting, washing the skyline in amber. Naomi crouched, sketching a rough line in the dirt with a stick. If we angle the promenade here, the river's reflection will catch the sunset. It'll give the whole stretch a glow. It'll feel alive. Malik crouched too, close enough she could smell his cologne. Clean, Woodsy? That's brilliant, he admitted. She blinked. Did you just compliment me? Don't get used to it, he teased, but his eyes were soft. For a moment, the air shifted. The sound of the river filled the silence between them. Naomi's heart thudded, and when she looked up, Malik was watching her with something dangerous in his gaze. Not rivalry, not arrogance. Hunger. She stood quickly, brushing dirt from her palms. We should, document this for the team. He rose too, lips twitching. Of course. For the team. But his eyes told another story. That night, Naomi dreamed of rivers and hands at her waist. When she woke, her phone glowed on the nightstand with a message from an unknown number. You still owe me 30 seconds, M. Her stomach flipped. She should delete it, block him. Instead, she typed back. Next site visit, 30 seconds only. She hit send before she could change her mind, and when the 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared again, Naomi realized she was no longer just building a river. She was standing on the edge of one, and Malik Hartwell was the current. Part 3. Breaking boundaries. Naomi had never liked late-night meetings. They were where exhaustion made people careless, where contracts blurred into confessions, which was exactly why she felt the danger of this one. The conference room at Davis & Company was mostly dark, save for the warm glow of the desk lamp and the spill of city lights through the tall windows. Renderings stretched across the table, markers scattered like afterthoughts. It was nearly midnight. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. Only she and Malik remained, stubbornly revising cost projections line by line. I'm not shifting the pedestrian bridge design, Naomi said, circling a number. The angle is integral to the aesthetic. And the city can't afford the steel you want, Malik replied, leaning back, tie loose, shirt sleeves rolled up. His forearms flexed as he crossed them, and Naomi forced her gaze back to the paper. We'll source differently, she said. You always think money grows on trees. You always think beauty is disposable. He chuckled, a low, tired sound. And yet, somehow, we're supposed to build something together. Silence pressed in. Naomi's heart thudded. She dropped her marker. Maybe we shouldn't. His gaze sharpened. Say that again. She swallowed. Maybe this is a mistake. Maybe some things aren't meant to be bridged. He stood slowly, circling the table. Naomi's pulse spiked. Tell me you believe that, he murmured, stopping beside her chair. She trailed off. His nearness was a gravity she couldn't resist. She forced herself to look up at him, eyes defiant even as her body betrayed her. I don't trust you, Malik. Good, he said softly, bending closer. Because trust isn't the same as wanting. Her breath hitched. His hand braced on the table beside her. Naomi, you can't stand me. I drive you crazy. You're supposed to hate me. I do, she whispered. Then why, his voice dipped lower, are you shaking? Her hands trembled against the table. She clenched them into fists. Because you don't stop pushing. You don't stop pulling, he countered, and before she could answer, his lips were on hers. The kiss was not tentative. It was fire breaking through steel, a rush of everything they had pretended not to feel. Naomi gasped, then pressed back, her hand curling into his shirt. The world tilted, narrowed, and then exploded into heat. When he pulled back, both of them breathless. His eyes searched hers. "Tell me to stop." She should have. She should have shoved him away, reminded him of their families, their war, their boundaries, but her voice betrayed her. "Don't stop." His groan was low, guttural, before his mouth found hers again. They broke apart minutes later, both panting, both shaken. Naomi stumbled back, pressing fingers to her lips. "This can't happen," she whispered. "It already did." Malik's voice was hoarse, his eyes dark. "And you don't regret it?" Her heart screamed denial, but her silence betrayed her. He took a step closer. She held up her hand, trembling. "No, we have rules." "I told you," he said quietly. "I'll follow your rules. Until you ask me to break them." She turned, gathering her things with shaking hands. "We don't speak of this. Ever." "Fine," he said, though his eyes told her otherwise. She fled the office, but the taste of him lingered like a secret she couldn't wash away. For days, Naomi avoided him. At site visits, she kept conversations clipped. In meetings, she focused on blueprints, never his mouth. But avoidance was its own kind of intimacy. The charged awareness of what they were pretending hadn't happened. And then came the storm. A spring thunderstorm hit the city during another late-night work session, rain hammering the office windows like fists. The building shook with the rumble of thunder. The power flickered, then cut, plunging everything into semi-darkness. Naomi cursed under her breath, fumbling for her phone's flashlight. "You okay?" Malik's voice floated from across the room. She steadied her breath. "Fine." "Don't sound fine." "I'm not afraid of storms," she said, though her heart was pounding for reasons unrelated to thunder. His light bobbed closer, illuminating his face in soft shadows. He looked at her the way storms look at the sea. Hungry, inevitable. "You're afraid of me," he said. "No," she lied. "Yes." His voice was velvet and iron. "Because you don't know what you'll do next." Her flashlight trembled. She hated how well he saw her, how deeply. "Malik, we can't—" Lightning flashed, thunder cracked, and suddenly his hand was on her face, tilting her chin, and his mouth was on hers again. This time, Naomi didn't resist. Her arms wrapped around his neck. The storm raged outside, but inside, the only violence was the way her heart tore down every wall she'd built. His hands mapped her curves like blueprints, reverent, desperate. When they finally broke apart, gasping, Naomi pressed her forehead to his. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "I told you," he murmured, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Hartwells don't invade. We seduce." Her laugh broke on a sob. "I don't know if I hate you or—" "Don't finish that," he said, eyes burning into hers. "Not yet." Later, when the storm passed and lights returned, Naomi found herself staring at their reflection in the conference window. Her blouse askew, his tie gone, both of them flushed and shaken. For the first time in her life, Naomi Davis wasn't sure which side of the war she was on. And for the first time, she didn't care. Part 4. Love or war? Naomi had always believed in blueprints. They gave order to chaos, direction to dreams. But nothing had prepared her for the blueprint her life had just unraveled into. A dangerous, undeniable bond with Malik Hartwell. And someone had noticed. It started with whispers. Her father's assistant, Mrs. Graves, looked at her too long during meetings. Kayla asked too casually if she'd been working late again. Naomi brushed it all off, but she knew. Secrets leaked like water. Then one evening, she walked into her father's study, and Leonard was waiting with a glass of bourbon and a silence that could crack marble. "Sit," he said. Naomi obeyed. Leonard studied her, lines deepening around his eyes. "You've been reckless." Her heart lurched. "I don't know what you mean." "You do?" His voice was sharp, but under it was pain. "I told you Hartwells seduce. I told you they take what they want until there's nothing left, and you're letting one in." Naomi swallowed, throat tight. "It's not like that." "It's always like that," Leonard snapped. Then his expression softened. "Naomi, you're my legacy. Everything I've built, everything I've fought for, it's supposed to be yours, and you're risking it for—" "What?" His smile. Tears burned her eyes. "It's not just a smile." "Then it's worse," he said quietly. She fled before she could break. The next night, Malik found her on the half-built promenade, sitting on a pile of steel beams, staring at the river. The construction lights bathed the water in silver. "You look like the city just betrayed you," he said softly. Naomi didn't look up. Maybe it did. He climbed onto the beam beside her, close but not touching. "Talk to me." She exhaled, trembling. "My father knows. Or he suspects. He says I'm risking everything." Malik was silent for a moment. Then, "He's not wrong." Her head snapped toward him. "This thing between us, it's fire. Beautiful, but dangerous. It could burn down everything our family's built. So what? We just stop?" Her voice cracked. He looked at her, eyes dark and tender. "Can you?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. The truth was there in her silence. He reached for her hand, finally touching her. "Neither can I." The next week, the war escalated. Gideon Hartwell called a press conference, announcing that Hartwell Development would be leading the project, with Davis and company in a supporting role. Leonard erupted, calling Malik's father a thief, a liar. The mayor tried to calm them, but the feud spilled across newspapers, boardrooms, and the streets. And through it all, Naomi and Malik stole moments, a glance across a crowded hall, fingers brushing under a table, a kiss in a stairwell that felt like the last sip of water in a desert. Every time, Naomi swore it would be the last. Every time, it wasn't. It came to a head the night of the city gala. Naomi arrived in midnight blue satin, Kayla at her side. Leonard was already in heated conversation with donors. Gideon Hartwell stood across the room, smug as ever. And Malik? Malik was watching her, like she was the only star in a black sky. Halfway through the evening, Naomi slipped onto the balcony for air. Malik followed minutes later. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I'm always where you are," he murmured. She closed her eyes, aching. This has to end. They'll destroy each other. They'll destroy us. He cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. "Naomi, listen to me. We've spent our whole lives being told this is a war. What if it's not? What if it's supposed to be a bridge?" Tears slid down her cheeks. "We can't build a bridge out of lies." "Then let's tell the truth," he said fiercely. "Let's stop hiding. Tonight, right now, let them see us and let them deal with it." Her heart hammered. "They'll hate us." "Maybe," he admitted. "But maybe they'll finally see what we can make together." Naomi hesitated. Every fear, every lesson, every warning screaming in her head. But then she thought of the river, the way it reflected light when shaped right, the way something fractured could still flow. And she thought of Malik, the man who was supposed to be her enemy, but had become her gravity. Her lips trembled into a smile. "Then let's burn the blueprint." They walked back into the ballroom, hand in hand. Gasps rippled. Leonard froze, bourbon glass halfway to his lips. Gideon's smirk faltered into shock. The entire city elite stared as Naomi and Malik crossed the floor, shoulders squared, fingers intertwined. Leonard's voice cracked like thunder. "Naomi, what are you doing?" "Building something new," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is betrayal." His voice trembled with rage. "No," she said, lifting her chin. "This is love." Gideon sneered. "Love won't save you from war." Malik stepped forward, his hand never leaving Naomi's. "Then let it start a new one. One we fight together." Silence thundered through the room. And then, slowly, impossibly, applause began. Scattered, hesitant, but growing. Donors, officials, people tired of the feud. The sound swelled like rain, breaking a drought. Leonard's jaw tightened. Gideon's eyes burned. But Naomi saw it, the crack in the walls they had spent decades building. She squeezed Malik's hand. He looked at her, and for the first time, they both smiled without fear. That night, on the promenade still under construction, Naomi and Malik stood at the river's edge. "This is crazy," she whispered, laughing through her tears. "Maybe," Malik said, kissing her temple. "But so is falling in love with your enemy." She leaned into him, watching the water shimmer. then let's make the city fall crazy with us. And as the river flowed beneath them, endless and unstoppable, Naomi realized something. Some blueprints weren't meant to be followed. Some were meant to be rewritten together. Thank you for listening to The Storyteller's Moon. If this story touched you, scared you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps the stories alive, and I can't wait to share the next one with you under the moonlight. Until then, may your nights be safe and your dreams unforgettable.